course, you have to factor in, the fact that Taylor Lewan is not starting, that Nate Davis is not starting either. So between all those, issues, pretty much of a struggling rushing effort and really a struggling offense overall in most aspects. But I suspect, as I say, the more reps and even practices that Foreman and Peterson get, I think it's going to have to pick up. We heard people who watched the game last night heard Chris Collinsworth, kind of evaluating Adrian Peterson, saying, it was running too high. His pads were too high, and that's the kind of thing, when you haven't played in a while, that's the kind of thing that you'll do, and that will improve probably over time.
Just like our show hopes to, always trying to improve over time. And John Glennon, a big part of helping us out with that today. He's with SportsIllustrated.com covering the Titans.
Well, JG, I don't know if you were at the game, but, man, I expected a good showing. I said it earlier in the week, but not just out physical them and just beating them like that, especially from the defensive side of the ball. Were you surprised, or do you expect it?
I was surprised. I'll be honest with you. Maybe we shouldn't be now. This is two really explosive offenses in the last three games that the Titans have shut down. When you look at the Chiefs and the Rams, Titans give up a combined one touchdown in those two games, and it was a meaningless one at that, coming in the last 30 seconds of a game. So, I think we all expected some progress in the defense this year, because last year was such a kind of a horror show. But boy, are we seeing some real strides here recently. Who would have thought that the Titans, after totaling 19 sacks last year, would have 23 already this year, tied for fifth in the league. And 10 of those sacks have come in the last three games. So, and the thing is too, we've seen some of the next gen stats. The Titans are getting almost all of this pressure with a four-man rush. They're not needing to pull a guy out of coverage in order to get after the passer. Leaves them better off in coverage as well. And as a result, you're seeing some pretty impressive defensive performances, which the Titans will certainly need here if their offense continues to struggle as it did last night.
Man, I know we're on with John Glennon, and, man, keep it real from SI.com. The Titans, I have to say they got to be number one or number two in the AFC, but – man, they are showing now why they are, before the season, Super Bowl contenders. Would you agree with that assessment or not?
I think they're going to have to find a way, obviously, to be better on offense than they were last night. That running attack, which was 60 or 70 yards, is not going to cut it. But again, two starters missing on the offensive line, couple of backs that should get better. So I think that offense will get better, but. Yeah, to me, the biggest surprise, I think I felt like almost all of last year, even the Titans won the division. They were headed in the playoffs. To me, I always kind of felt I just can't see these guys going too far, honestly, because the defense was so poor. The third down defense was historically bad. Red zone was really bad, and you really just thought there was a huge Achilles heel to overcome. But now you're looking at this defense this year, and you're saying, man, if they can put some games together like that, against the Rams and against the Chiefs as well, if the defense can hold up and the offense can kind of learn to live without Derrick Henry a little bit better, yeah, I think they've got a real run. And again, you look at these four teams that they just beat, Buffalo, Kansas City, at the Rams, and at Indy. That's a pretty good run in the gauntlet right there to come away with four victories right there.
JG, man, when did you start believing, when watching the game, and I don't want to call it turning point, that the Titans are going to win this game? It's over.
Well, I really felt, as soon as the early stages of the game, when they were pressuring and sacking Stafford on a regular basis, we weren't seeing that explosive Rams offense. We weren't seeing them, piling up big plays and yards down the field. And when you get those back-to-back plays, the interceptions culminating with the Byard pick six there, I think that gave the real indication to everybody that, the Titans defense was going to give the Rams offense, everything they could. So, I kind of thought at that point, again, if you can just have an offense that is good enough at that point, and to their credit, the Titans offense did drive for 2 touchdowns. So I really thought that early on they were giving indications this is going to be a long day for the Rams offense and that they had a real shot at things.
With where their record is now, not only do the players get the recognition, but the coaching staff and the head coach, where would you put him right now, I guess halfway through the season, for Coach of the Year in the NFL?
I think he's certainly got to be, high up there. I think he's definitely in the mix at this point, especially when you consider the amount of injuries that the Titans have dealt with this year. We mentioned the offensive line just last night. Obviously, Derrick Henry. But you look defensively too. Christian Fulton hasn't been able to play much. Bud Dupree has been kind of spotty at best. The hooker was out for a while too, and I believe, the Titans have more. I'm not positive of this, but I believe the Titans have more man games lost due to injury than any other team. So, generally speaking, a team like that, it's doing all it can just to kind of keep its head above water and stay in the playoff race. Not only are the Titans doing that, but they're kind of running away with the division, and again, if they can keep it up, certainly have a pretty decent chance at becoming the conference's top seed. So I think you got to give a lot of credit to Mike Vrabel at this point.
Lastly, JG, I guess, do you know any information or more information about why Lawan did not play in this game? He was just more for emergency, or if they got down to the last guy, they were going to play him.
Yeah, weird situation again. About halfway through the week, all of a sudden he appeared on the injury report with a knee issue, and didn't practice Friday, if I recall correctly, but was still listed as questionable. But I guess we can only assume until we talk to Mike Vrabel here in a little bit today that maybe he had a little tweak of that knee as well. But I think it has to be a concern now for the Titans because, not only was there that original ACL, obviously, that kept him out so much last year, but this is 2 games now where he hasn't played because of, kind of sliding or, backslides on that injury and tweaking the knee again. So certainly that has to be something of a concern when your starting left tackle is a little bit questionable each game.
Well, at some point, drafting an offensive tackle the last 2 years in the first and second round is going to come back and bite the Titans if Lawan is not available.
Yeah, well, I was going to say also, it's just not a great sign either. I don't think that Dylan Radins, obviously was a second-round pick last year. This is a guy who played left tackle, in college. Now granted the Titans drafted him as a right tackle and he's been playing, either right tackle or right guard since he's with the Titans, but you would have thought before the season if the Titans were in a jam like they were last night with no Taylor Lewan, and to see them putting Bobby Hart and a guy who was just signed as a street free agent a few weeks ago over a guy, a second-round draft pick who played left tackle in college, I don't think that's a real good look, for Dylan Radins right now.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Keeping it real here with John Glennon of SI.com.
Well, JG, and the other thing is, too, so Aaron Brewer comes off of injured reserve and started ahead of Radins at guard. I mean, he's not only is he not getting on the field as a tackle, he got substituted for an undrafted free agent center out of Texas State to play guard instead of him.
Yeah, and of course Brewer is just coming off the injured reserve, so hadn't played in about a month either. Yeah. And we heard a few weeks ago, offensive line coach Keith Carter, it really sounded as if Radins had maybe taken some strides, and there was the talk of, he's right there, he's the next man up, and at least to me, it sounded as if, Radins was about to get some more significant playing time. Maybe I misread that or misheard that, but it's just not happening. And from all we understand about Dylan Radins, great work ethic, great learning ability, but it's just not happening right now. And, again, I think it's one thing if Dylan Radins hadn't started at the beginning of the year, wasn't playing much at the beginning of the year. I think that could certainly be understood, given the Titans had some veterans ahead of him. But, when Taylor Lewan is out of the game, when Kendall Lamb, his backup, is out of the game, and again, you're using Bobby Hart in at left tackle, and as you mentioned, Aaron Brewer at guard. right guard, which Dylan had played quite a bit. Kind of makes you wonder where his progress is.
Speaking of progress, has anybody made any progress at all finding out how some knucklehead changed Jalen Ramsey's first unsportsmanlike conduct call to just something other than unsportsmanlike? So he just gets to stay in the game. He can just rack up all the.
I didn't even know they could change the call.
Yeah.
Is
any
that
explanation?
strange? Or I mean that I have never. Maybe I'm missing, but I had never seen or heard anything like that before. I think we've all seen, officials maybe 5 seconds after they make a call say, "Oops, my mistake.
Right.
I made the right call. Or, excuse me, I made the wrong call. It shouldn't have been unsportsmanlike. It was unnecessary roughness instead." But this, it was over a quarter later after they had called unsportsmanlike conduct on Jalen Ramsey in the first quarter. There had been no announcement of a change. It was still listed, on the NFL's official play-by-play as unsportsmanlike. Mike Vrabel certainly hadn't been alerted to the fact that there had been a change on that call. For all we know, Jalen Ramsey was playing with the idea that he already had one unsportsmanlike call on him. And then, when he gets that unsportsmanlike, to all of a sudden say, "Oh, oops, oh, by the way, did I not mention that we changed that call? That way, he's not going to be ejected now." That really opens you up to a lot of scrutiny, I think, if you're the NFL. It's just not a good look at all. Maybe he's, certainly completely above board and he just forgot to mention it at the time, but isn't there a protocol there? At what point does that call become the official call? Can a referee say at any point in the game, say, "Oh no, by the way, 3 quarters ago, when I called this, what I really meant was such and such." That's a big gray area there, and at some point that call has to stick. You can't just say, "Yeah, I forgot to mention it to everybody, but really we changed that." So I did mention, or I did email the NFL this morning asking about that play, how it came about, what the protocol was, and that was about 4 or 5 hours ago, and I've gotten a big Zippo in return so far. So yeah, it's kind of a head scratcher to me.
Yeah, tweet him.
John Glennon will leave here and check his junk email filter. Maybe that's where that response is from the NFL, because that's exactly what all that was last night. John Glennon, our guest on Blaine and Mickey.
Oh, man, you just hit on the head. Has the referee, I'm a big proponent of just not even, the referees are going to be who they are, and they're going to make mistakes here or there. Man, I tell you what, already in this season, halfway through, refereeing has just been absolutely horrible. And I know it's a hard job. But why are they missing calls like this that they shouldn't, miss? I don't understand what's going on here, man. Has instant replay just made it worse for them? I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out.
I really think that is the case, Blaine. I think that instant replay in a lot of ways has made it worse because, what the referees are seeing in split-second time from one angle, we, the public, get to see in slow motion time from 15 different angles. And it's much, much easier within 2 seconds time, we can all go, "Oh my God, what a horrendous call that was." Whereas the official in the heat of the moment, doesn't have that option. So I do think that instant replay has made things look worse for the NFL's officials than it has. But I don't know what the exact solution is. People say full-time officials, but in some ways that seems a little bit of a stretch. There's only so many games in an NFL season. It's hard to figure exactly what guys would be doing all the time if they're not at an NFL game. But yeah, some of those calls we saw last night, again, not only that weird Jalen Ramsey situation, but on the other side of things, that roughing the quarterback passing against Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, I didn't think that was
I thought that was terrible. A guy gives him a little shove just after Tannehill throws the pass, and that's a roughing the passer. I could certainly see why the Rams were upset about that. So yeah, some kind of brutal calls on both sides of the coin.
We're with John Glennon, with Titans writer for SI.com. I guess lastly for me, I thought before the NFC had stronger teams at the top for sure, and that they were better than the AFC. But is the AFC having more parity, making them just as strong?
I think it's starting to look that way a little bit now. Certainly the Ravens are a good team. We know that the Chargers are a little bit up and down. Buffalo with a shocking loss yesterday. And I think below them it gets kind of questionable. I think all of a sudden the Raiders are imploding with player character situations. But yeah, when you look at a game last night, the Rams and the Titans, everybody kind of figured the Rams were very possibly one of the two best teams in the league, maybe right there with Arizona and possibly Green Bay, Tampa Bay, I guess too. But when a kind of a fringe elite team from the AFC, at least before last night, comes in and just pastes one of the NFC top teams, I think that does help the parity issue quite a bit, and all of a sudden the AFC looks a little bit better than it did before the Titans kicked off against the Rams last night.